Today we hear two amazing stories of Scripture indeed. Two stories that most of us know well, of two widows. The widow of Seras. We read about her first encounter with Elijah today, and as the story continues, her son dies, and Elijah raises him from the dead. The widow of Zarephath, and then the widow of Nain. Both have suffered the unimaginable, the death of a child, and both have experienced the miracle of God's compassionate grace as each receives back her child. And these stories are amazing, and they're not new to us. I have no doubt you've heard these stories before, and I bet you know these stories because someone told you. Perhaps some minister preached a sermon that you had to sit through. Perhaps someone encouraged you to pick up a Bible and you read it. And you read stories, you read them all for yourself. Or maybe someone, a parent or a grandparent, an older brother or sister, a teacher, someone told you this story, and many like it, about the heroes of the Jewish scriptures, about the New Testament heroes, and Jesus. Jesus healing and teaching and feeding people. Jesus reaching out to God's people right where it hurts, with compassion and love, making us whole. That's how we learned the stories of the Bible when I was young. Someone told us. And that's how it has always been, I believe. We learn in Christian community from one another. We pass down the stories in our oral Judeo-Christian tradition, generation to generation, from parent and grandparent to child, from stranger to stranger, from friend to neighbor, one person to one person to one person. Even in this technological age, with access to all that is written, it is that interpersonal telling of the story with all the enthusiasm and personal exchange that makes the stories of our tradition alive and real. And just like we heard in the gospel account today, people are astonished and transformed, and the word spreads. Yet it seems there's a distinct difference these modern days in our culture. So much is secularized and compartmentalized. Not so many years ago, a kid in this country, and I truly can attest, a child growing up in central Pennsylvania could not help but hear the story of Jesus. Not so today. Even on the biggest holidays, if Christmas has a story, it is one of elves and Santa's reindeer and shopping specials, and Easter arrives with bunnies, bright-colored eggs, butterflies, and chocolate. Well, the chocolate's okay. More than ever, our task of telling the story falls to us. Each one of us. We might say it takes a community to raise up a child in the way we should go. And that is what we celebrate today. We celebrate our teachers, our youth leadership, our nursery caregivers. We celebrate our youth, our Sunday school children, and our littlest ones in the nursery. And we give special thanks. Thanks for what we have learned and for what we have been given, each of us, one to the other. We celebrate today that St. John's gets it, that St. John speaks a brilliant word that shapes and forms and nurtures us all, God's children of all ages, from 1 to 99. There is a verse in Scripture that is particularly dear to me from Proverbs. Raise up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I heard it long ago. In my early years encountering young children and youth, it gave me a word of direction. Later on, when we saw these youngsters strike out on their own as young adults, it gave us a word of confidence that all was well. And it gives me a word of joy and hope that long after my days on this earth are ended, that our children will go in the right way. They will know a life of prosperity and righteousness and joy. Raise up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Said another way, a newer translation, point your kids in the right direction, and when they're old, they won't get lost. It's a mighty task. And we give thanks for all those who have especially stepped up to the task with unique skills and gifts and personalities shared week by week and even years by year, who tell out the story in actions that speak louder than words, pointing our kids in the right direction, that when they are old, they won't get lost. In this Sunday's bulletin today is a whole page of folks engaged especially in this mighty task. And later we will acknowledge those among us. There are many. Thanks be to God. And it is a time today for each of us and all of us, each one of us, to recommit and pledge to continue to do our part as Christ calls, is calling us to engage in the story, to tell the story, the Christ story, in the actions we take, the words we speak, the prayer we keep, raising up our children, all God's children, here at St. John's and beyond in all the world. You've heard it before. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And with the thanks of Mary Ellen Kilp, and with all our picture takers this year, it's time to see the pictures that speaks the newest chapter of 100,000 words at St. John's, giving thanks to God for the good begun and continued.